Hello and welcome back to my channel. So today, as you can tell, I'm filming from an extraordinarily weird angle because I've got my little Bubba in my arms, and because I have the baby and it is actually a little bit harder to film videos whilst I have him, I decided that I would just film this intro for a bunch of Thermomix slash Supercook slash Bellini, whichever machine you have, Smith& and Noble. There's a million thermal cookers out there. And basically I get requests a lot to do more tutorials of what kinds of things you can make with your machine. So what I'll do is for each video, I'll have this intro explaining what the machine is and how it works and what it does. But if you want to skip and go straight to the recipe that's in this video, I'll put on the screen right now what time to go to skip right to that recipe. All right. So if you're still here, I'll explain what a thermocooker is. So if you haven't heard of thermocookers, they're going to change your life. If you're anything like me, I'm very time poor. I often either have someone I'm looking after, or I don't have a lot of time after work, or I just don't have a lot of patience when it comes to food. I'd rather use lots of times that I have to cook to be with my little baby. And so I don't want to be standing there at the stove or watching things or checking things on the oven, that kind of thing. And so for me, the thermocooker has been a brilliant way for me to try a bunch of different foods that I never would have tried before and save myself tons of time a lot of the time. And so these recipes that I'm going to show you through these series is going to be basically some of my favorite go-to recipes, things that I never thought I'd make necessarily, but because I have a thermocooker, it's easy. So what is a thermocooker? So a thermocooker, firstly, they go by a lot of different names. The popular ones, or the more popular ones here in Australia, are the Thermomix. Thermomix is like the, brand name fancy one, and those ones cost anywhere between like $2,000 to $3,000. And then they have lower end ones, or I wouldn't even say lower end. They have different machines. And so the next one up that I can think of that you can get is a Supercook, which is what I have. And those retail anywhere between $600 to I think about $1,000. And so I got mine for $600. And that was part of a one of those deals where if there's enough people who go for like a interest thing, then they'll ship them to the country. So I went into one of those and love it. Yeah. And then the next one that you can get is called the Smith& and Noble or Bellini. They're basically the same machine, but they had two different companies, I think, that were making them at one point. And so I had a Bellini for years. So I had my secondhand $50 Bellini for about 3 years before I decided I absolutely loved it and wanted to get the Supercook because for the Supercook, it had built-in recipes. I could add recipes of my own. It had built-in scales. It had one blade. So going into what the machine itself actually does, lots. So that's the short answer. The long answer is basically anything that you can do on a stove, and basically anything that you could do with a lot of appliances like a rice cooker, or a blender, or like a slicing machine of some kind, you can pretty much do in a thermocooker. So for example, it can steam vegetables, it can cook you rice, it can make the mix for jam, it can make rice pudding, it can roast a small turkey, it could make risottos, make soup, it can make all kinds of things. And the whole point of it really is that it's an all-in-one, in essence, machine. So basically it can do quite a few things. It chops, it blends, it steams, it cooks, it sautés, and it's all in the one machine. And then at the end, it's pretty much a self-cleaning machine because you can just take whatever it is that you made in it and then pour in water and some dish soap, whiz it up on 2.5 minutes at 90 degrees Celsius at like speed 2, and then it pretty much just about cleans itself. And so to have a machine that does all the work for you, you don't have to constantly stir, don't have to check on it. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. And so I love it. Like, I'm known to make rice pudding, which I'd never made before, and I quite frankly don't know how to make it without this machine. I've done a tutorial on that one before. That was the first thing I ever tried. And basically, I just set it on the time that it needs, the temperature it needs, and the speed that it needs. I pre-make the mix of stuff. So I pre-make the bag of rice and sugar and stuff that it needs. And then I just pour in a liter of milk, turn on the machine, and then I go for a shower. And so I come out of my shower and I clean this one, and I put him down to bed, and then I come down to this beautiful, perfect, every single time rice pudding. And so that's just a small explanation of what this machine does. So basically, if you can do it on the stove, you can basically do it in this machine, and it just is a time saver, and it's helpful for people like me in terms of disability. So if you have trouble chopping, or you have trouble mixing, or you have just, arthritis like I do, I find it so helpful that it can do all the things that just don't come easily to me. Like I cannot hold a ladle and stir. That is quite difficult for me. And I can't chop that easily. Holding a knife is, similar difficulties. So this machine just basically takes away a lot of the hassle I find in cooking. Other people love it just because if you're not very good at cooking, it can be very easy just to follow the step-by-step procedure in this machine, where you just say, okay, this temperature for this many minutes, important, in exactly this much ingredients, and just let it do its thing. A lot of people find that really helpful and really easy, which I can understand, because it honestly feels like a no-fail machine. I don't think I've had anything, not work in it. Yeah. Yeah, he just wants some cuddles. All right. And so in terms of the machine itself, I'm a big fan, and I often, like I said, get asked on this channel to put some more recipes up, because at the moment, at the time of filming this, and like I said, this will probably be the intro for a lot of videos for the next few months. Basically, I've just done like risottos and rice pudding and pasta dishes, all-in-one pasta dishes, which are so fantastic and easy to do. And so the machine won't necessarily always save you time, because some of the recipes obviously do, require you to constantly be putting things in and setting the machine at different temperatures and different speeds for different times. But it basically lets you cook things that you may never have cooked before. Like, I have never made a risotto in like real life. I've only made it in the thermal cooker, and it comes out perfect every time. So that is what a thermal cooker is. That is what a thermal cooker does. I'm, like I said, going to use this intro to show you a few things that I've been making here at home on my maternity leave. And that's the other thing I love, if you're busy, breastfeeding, or if you're busy running after a toddler, or if you're busy, soothing a crying baby, you can just have this machine run in the background doing its thing, and still have a yummy meal despite not having, necessarily the time to do it. So I'm a huge fan. Baby's a huge fan. I also make his baby food in there. So comment down below if you want to see what kind of things I make for his baby food, because I basically make things, then freeze them into little sections for a baby to eat. And that way it's cheaper for me, it's better for me. I know what's going into my little Bubba's food, and I get the satisfaction that I made it. So thank you so much in advance for watching. I hope this tutorial is helpful, and I hope that it's easy enough to see what to do. But basically, with any thermal cooker machine you're using, there are 3 functions. 1, the cooking temperature. So I'll always tell you in the recipe tutorials what the cooking temperature is. On some machines, and it varies from machine to machine, sometimes over 100 degrees, they call it something different. Some machines you'll see ST, that's steaming temperature. So if I say above 100 degrees and yours doesn't show anything above 100 and you just get like ST, pick that. But if I say ST on my machine, because I think I did a few tutorials when I had the machine that said ST after 100 degrees, then just pick like 110 degrees for instead of ST. And then the second part of the machine, next to the temperature dial, is the time dial. And so that tells you how long you're going to cook. So if I say cook for 2 minutes, you set your timer on the machine to 2 minutes. And then the third thing is the speed. And so again, depending on what machine you have, things might be different. So for me, for speed, there's only really one thing I need to do. If it says speed 2, I put speed 2. If it says speed 6, I put speed 6. Things you need to know that different machines have different safety measures. So on some machines, if your machine is above a speed 4, you can't be above a certain temperature for safety reasons. It just basically prevents you from, spattering yourself with boiling hot water, which is fair. So it depends from machine to machine what exactly it does or does not let you do for speed and temperature. Then, sorry, I'm like falling out of the screen, but I have Bubba trying to get into the screen. And so, baby, gotta stay this way. All right. Then in terms of the blades inside the machine, Thermomixes and my Supercook and some other machines only have the one blade. And so if you only have the one blade, that means that when it's going around the main way, it slices and you're using the sharp side of the blade. If you put it on reverse, or if the recipe asks for reverse, that means that you want the spinning to go backwards so that you can get the blunt side of the blade, meaning that it won't chop up things. So this would be important in things like, if you're mixing something, but you don't necessarily want to chop it up. Like, so if you have a mince, you don't necessarily want to be mincing your mince into like mush, and you just want to stir, then you'd want the reverse. You'd want the blunt blade. In other machines, you have a separate blade to do that. So you'd have, you'd switch between your sharp blade and your blunt blade, which I found annoying, which is also part of the reason why I got a Supercook. So if you see reverse, often that means switch to your blunt blade if you don't have the reverse function. All right, so I hope that was a fairly clear explanation of the machine. That was a very long explanation, but like I said, though, that's why I put the time where the recipe starts at the very beginning, because if you already know all of this and you already understand your machine, great, good on you, welcome to the club. And what you'll see next is the recipe, and I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for watching. Bye. All right, so today I'm going to be making some more baby food for the Bubba. And so my baby has basically tried a whole heap of the mixed concoctions that I made per the last video of baby food that I've posted. It was a huge hit, so I'm just going to town making a bunch more, because the pouches that you can buy for baby food are usually like $1 to $2 each, and he could easily have 2 or 3 of those a day, which can get quite pricey. So we decided just to make our own because it's easy enough for me to do, and I actually take a weird amount of joy from it. So today we're going to be doing a pear puree on its own. If you haven't tested out various fruits and veggies on your baby, it's important to test them out first. So he hasn't had pear yet, so I'm going to make that individually and give that to him. But in anticipation of the fact that he's not allergic, I am making mixes that do have pear in them, because I haven't really heard of someone who has a pear allergy, and we don't have pear allergies, so I think it's going to be okay. So today, per usual, I'm just going to get everything prepared. So everything's been washed, and my lovely husband peeled these for me. And so I'm now just going to cut these up into chunks, all these chunks and chunks. And then what I'm going to do is step 1 will be putting the chunk version into the basket of my Supercooks, and I'll be cooking them on 20 minutes, 110 degrees Celsius on speed 3. And that will just make it all into mushy steamed version of these. And then I will show you the next step. So let's go ahead and get these chopped, and then I will put them into the steamer basket for puree purposes. All right, so I'm putting the first mix in, which is the carrot and the pear all chopped up. So this is my basket, which most of your Thermomixes or Supercook or Bellini, whatever it is that you're using, comes with. And I filled it
with water just below up to the basket. So I haven't filled the basket with water, it's all just below. The water, once you put it on these settings of 110 degrees Celsius, 20 minutes, and then on speed 3, the steam will come up and steam these, obviously. So I'm just going to get that going here, and then repeat the same with the other batches that I have, and that will steam all the parts that go together, and then I'll show you step number 2. So step number 1, yeah, step number 1 is steaming all of your components. So just fill the jug roughly with like 500 grams or a few cups of water. So it's just below the basket. Put your basket in with whatever it is that you're steaming up, and then set it on these settings, and happy steaming. All right, so these are the steamed carrots and pear. And so what I'm going to do is I just poured out a bunch of the water that had been underneath here and kept, as you can see, a few tablespoons of it at the bottom. This will just help keep the puree more like a puree and a little bit wet rather than too dry and hard for a baby to swallow. So I'm just going to dump everything in this basket into that bowl with the few tablespoons of water left. So again, I just dumped out the excess water and just kept a few tablespoons. This is the pear and carrot, and I'm just going to add a dollop of butter to it. And then I'm just going to try and put this on about speed 3 or 4, if it'll let you, depending on the heating settings on your thing. I'm going to put this on for 40 seconds and see if that's the puree level that I like. So BRB. So this was 40 seconds on speed 4 and definite success. It's a nice pureed mash, as you can see, and slightly watery, as you can see, like sloshing around in the bowl like that. So that's the kind of consistency you want for the baby at first when they're doing this first bout of baby food and starting solids. So I always find it funny when they call it starting solids. They're not even starting solids. They're starting like mushy, liquidy bits. So this is the first carrot and pear, and I'm going to go do the next batch now. So same thing. So I've just rinsed out the bowl. I just literally ran it under water and swished it out, and it came out nice and clean. So I just filled it up with some more water again. So about, again, a couple cups until you kind of fill to about this part on your jug. And then I filled my basket with my apples and strawberries. And again, I'm just going to plop that in there, and you'll see that the water is right below it. If I push a little, you can see that it's just a little bit of water at the bottom there, which is exactly what you want. So it's just right at the bottom of the basket. So I'm going to steam this for, again, 20 minutes on temperature 110 on speed 3, like so. And then I will come back with the puree version. Is the steamed apple and strawberries, and then like before I just kept a little bit, like a few tablespoons, like 3 or 4 of the water that I steamed from before, and threw out the rest. And then I just put in a pinch of cinnamon, which is that powdery bit there, and then I will whiz that up on the same settings, and then that will be the rest of the puree. Here are the concoctions. So this is so I just have the pear, as you heard, just beat through. That one just straight pear, so there's nothing really to show. It's just puree pear. But this one is the carrot pear, and so as you can see, I just label all of them at the top what they are, so that I know how long they can be in the freezer. So all of these can stay in the fridge for 2 days and the freezer for 2 months. And so this one is the apple strawberry and cinnamon. And so apple strawberry cinnamon puree, carrot pear puree, carrot pear and butter puree, and then the pear is just straight pear, because again we were just testing that first for him. And so these are the meals that will probably last us about a week for him, so not bad for, like, you know, maybe less than 40 minutes work. So an hour maybe total with the cutting and steaming and mixing. And that's just to be honest, because I'm filming, so it'll probably take less time. So pretty quick process for a week's worth of food. And honestly, I could get more fruit and veggies and make more concoctions all at once. So definitely will be keeping this up. So if you want to see more videos like this, definitely comment down below. Let me know if there's any other concoctions you want to see me try out or test out. But otherwise, I'll just keep mixing for Bubba here and keep making things and showing you guys things as I make them. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!